Hello, readers. Welcome to 20 Questions with Your Favorite Author, where we ask authors important questions like, why would you agree to be on this podcast? I'm Kelly Lynn Colby, Editorial Director at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. Our guest this week is Stevie Rae Causey, fantasy writer and podcast host. Stevie is a nerd living in the Pacific Northwest. Special interests include relational psychology, symbolism, hiking, and dogs. She may very well just be a series of coping mechanisms in a trench coat masquerading as human. If she's not your favorite now, she will be after. Woohoo! Welcome, Stevie. How are you feeling this evening?
I'm doing pretty good for a Tuesday that's really my Monday.
That's You begin your week on Tuesdays, huh? Is that your thing?
No, only this week. This is an unusual week for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. School starting has put everything off on this. What should be a traditional schedule, and nothing is traditional right now.
Yeah, my oldest has high school orientation tomorrow for their first year on campus, but they are a sophomore, so everything was digital. They've never actually been to the high school, and yeah, tomorrow is the day for that.
Wow.
Wow, right?
Exciting. It's almost like normal. It's almost like life's getting back to normal.
I don't feel like my kid is in high school. That doesn't feel normal. I'm like, wait, weren't you just born? I don't know what normal is yet, but like maybe.
Oh, it all happened so quickly.
It's weird to have them. So my youngest would be starting kindergarten this year, and so I'm either the youngest mom or the oldest mom, depending on the friend group.
Now that I understand. I understand. I know when things were changing when I was the youngest mom, and now I'm the oldest mom. That's
yeah, I'm looking down the barrel of my son going to all the schools that my older two are going to, and going, oh man, I'm gonna be so much older and still having to come to these.
Oh, let me tell you. Let's see, where are we? Oh, questions. I'm supposed to ask you questions. I think that's what we're supposed to do here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm too friendly.
Oh, me too. It's okay. I mean, we have an hour. It'll be fine. Let's see. Our first question is, where do you get your ideas?
Oh man, where do I get my ideas? It's usually while I'm avoiding other things I'm supposed to be writing. It's a little bit of a demand avoidance, dopamine seek. My most recent release, Persephone Plus, it's a short that I did for an anthology that I didn't end up getting into, and I published the story anyway, was inspired by a meme that I saw. So that's my first one that was just like a random scroll while I was supposed to be working on King's Prisoner, and was like, ooh, let's do this instead. Beyond that, I'm inspired a lot by my kids. Again, Persephone Plus was partially a love story to my kiddo. There's a non-binary kiddo in the retelling that I did, and my kid came out 2 years ago. And then subsequently their sister came out as gay as well this year. So there's a little bit of that where they wanted to see, everyone talks about Persephone and Hades, like they were this Romeo and Juliet like thing, and really none of the gods were monogamous, but could we write it in a way that's not toxic? And we do a lot of that kind of talk at the dinner table. It varies from like, oh, which ways were Medusa's story told completely wrong, to like, if you eat a werewolf, is it cannibalism, was yesterday. So there's a lot of opportunity for ideas and kicking things back and forth at our house.
That is awesome. It's a whole family of writers talking about philosophy.
It is pretty. Yeah, my oldest does more visual art now, but they did win some writing awards in their younger days. And my 10-year-old is very big into writing right now. And my husband recently fell in love with D&D. And so he's been doing a lot of, I know this is the pot telling the kettle, but world building is hard.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm basically just completely exposed all the time to an opportunity to think of something worth writing about.
That is awesome. Well, you write mostly fantasy. What sparked your interest in this genre?
I was a big fantasy nerd as a kid. My author origin story is actually like The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Started out with the 1970s version, like the Warner Brothers cartoon. Like that's what I was raised on. And then by third grade, I was reading The Hobbit. I got to go to an advanced showing of one of the movies when it first came out. And that was just like, that was it for me. Coming from the background that I came from, I wanted a lot of escape, but I also found that fantasy did some really cool things that it doesn't get enough credit for when you talk about like lit fic versus genre fiction, where it plays with symbolism and what makes us human. And there's less restrictions to it. So I don't like to be told what I can't do.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, makes sense to me. Me neither.
Yeah.
None of us like it.
Right.
Trouble with authority, that's writers right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll make my own rules.
Well, we have a lot of YA fantasy fans among our listeners. So what can you tell them about, is it Amasai?
Amasai, yeah, or Amasai. I try not to tell my readers how to say something. I know that I personally get super upset if I have fallen in love with a character and then I hear it said like a new way and my way is wrong. So I try not to do that. I'll accept either one. It's based off a Hebrew word that meant bearer of burdens.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. So what can you tell us about that series?
So that series is classic secret heir to the Elven throne, like half-elf princess, thrown into a position that she didn't ask for, trying to find her way. It's an extension of... Oh, go ahead.
I love that you used an elf as the main character instead of a human.
I really love with elves. That. Like, yeah, it's an extension of Ring of Fire, which is the very first book that I published and one that I conceptualized in the middle of a science class that I got caught writing in class. And he was like, all right, well, turn in your homework and remember me when you're famous. And at that time I was like so into elves. And again, this is when Lord of the Rings was coming out. And I was like, yes, this is it forever. And when I first released the book, it wasn't like in, but I was doing it anyway because my dad was dying. I wanted him to see it done. And it's just recently like come back into popularity and I'm like, yes, this is my time. So they're all going on audio this year and yeah, it's been a blast. And I love elves. I just do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So is this series complete or are there more books to come?
It is complete, yeah. So it's a complete trilogy. Ring of Fire is the prequel. Amasai Rising is actually free on Kindle today, coincidentally, which I had forgotten about until I got the notice that like things were skyrocketing. So anyone who's listening can totally download that for free today.
Nice. Yeah. I maybe might have did that when I was doing research.
Yes, do it.
So yeah, so it's Amasai. It's Amasai Rising. So if you look that up, get it now. Get your ebook for free. So your bio talks about your focus on writing for teens. So talking about your dinner table, I'm starting to understand that. I'm getting a picture here. So what do you hope that group of young people get from your work?
Oh, man. This is actually, I love that you asked that question because this trilogy I started writing it after I published my first book and said I was never going to do that again because it was so hard. And it was 2016 and I just had a baby and I was like, never again. This is so difficult. I had to figure out all these things. And then I couldn't not do it. And I was looking at my oldest who was going through some identity things that we didn't know what it was at the time and seeing them struggle with some of the mental health stuff that was like, that I could relate to from that time in my life. And I thought, if I was going to tell a story about it, because my kid was a big reader, what would I want my kid to know? And I tried to fashion this world off of that idea. So I aim to give everyone, but especially young adults, the opportunity to explore themes that might be too difficult to approach directly and give them a chance to process those things. Which is especially important to me that it be done like appropriately, quote unquote, to their brain development, because there is so much research on the way that reading changes our brains, the way that we process that emotion through reading, and our brains signal as if we're experiencing it for like 72 hours after you finish reading. And so to me, I'm like, okay, well, if I could get in some kid's brain that doesn't have, that's doing like I am, sitting in the library after school to avoid going home, what would I want to say?
Oh, I love that. That is beautiful. Hey, Gretchen says you're number 1 in your category right now.
Ah!
Yay!
That's the first time that's happened. I'm going to screenshot it. I need to print it, Gretchen.
Yes.
It can go next to my one from the Weaver Son last year that made number 2.
Awesome.
I always print it out so that if I ever decide that I'm not doing it, I'm just like, well, but they're waiting.
I need, look, they have fans. I'm going to have to write.
Yeah, I was number 2.
That's awesome. Yeah, so Jenny says she really appreciates that too. So having that story for someone when they don't want to go home, I think a lot of us can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
So, yep. Even if it's because you don't want to go home and do dishes. That's my current life.
And I'm so glad that that's my teenager's favorite chore.
What?
I know. I don't know how I scored that, but it is. Thank you.
That is one special kid. I just want you to know.
It is. Yeah, I think I'll keep him.
That's awesome. Let's see. Well, so you talked about how you want to inspire teens. Who has inspired you along the way?
Oh, man. So many people have inspired me. My very first, again, during that time before I had read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but I was still super into the series, I had a teacher. He was my second grade teacher, and he taught in a low-income district where the building actually used to be an asylum before they made it a school. So
how do you not write horror?
Because I lived it. You don't need to write it. Gretchen does a little of it.
I love that.
So real. Anyway, he was just a rad dude, and he was really eclectic, and he would do like puzzles and stuff for us to just think about stuff through the day, and we would be rewarded with like geological finds from the area I have, which again, I'm into like collecting rocks and stuff because of this dude. And one of the ones he did that no one had ever solved was from The Hobbit. It was one of the ones that Gollum, the answer was egg. And I knew it, and he was like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, I've watched the movie. And he's like, all right, I cannot do any more from that. But hey, socially, like I struggled in school a little bit to make connections. So he was like, hey, we're having an ice cream party soon. And he brought that movie and showed it to everyone so that everyone would have a reference for this like obscure thing that I had identified myself with like speaking out about. So that was probably my very beginning.
That is an amazing teacher.
Oh, so amazing. I was like, oh my goodness, stories have currency? Like, yes, social currency, gimme. And he did a lot of stuff like that. So that was my very first experience with, wait, this thing I love can actually elicit attention in real life.
And plus he gave you, instead of saying, oh, nerd, what are you talking about, this stupid thing, he like accepted you and said you were awesome.
Yeah, and he was the first one to tell me that. He was like, did you know it's a book? And I was like, wait, what? No one had ever told me.
And you're like, I must have that book.
Must have. Yeah, by the next year I had it. I still have my old crumbly copy. It was secondhand when I got it, and it's been through some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, that's, when they're crumbly and they smell like mildew, they were loved.
They were loved, and then you have to get another copy so you can have one to read.
Well, then you keep that one on your shelf and you just get the digital copy to read. See, that's what I do.
Uh-huh. See, you're like digital, and I'm like, hardback special edition? Illustrated? What? I'm like, that's the one that'll always get me, is the illustrated one.
Yes. But again, I put them on my shelf. Look, like I have the Harry Potter on the shelf.
Oh,
but last time I reread them, I did them on my Kindle because it's a lot lighter.
It is a lot lighter. It's been a while since I've read that series, and the last time that I read it, I did it in reverse order.
That's hilarious.
I was young and married and home all the time, and everything was easy to clean before children, and I had read it forward so many times. I was like, I wonder what I could find if I read it last to first.
What, that's actually a very clever thing to do as a writer, if nothing else.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it at the time, but maybe I need to start redoing that.
Mm-hmm. That's very clever. Let's see, where was I? Oh, in The Weaver's Son, you reimagine Rumpelstiltskin from fairy tale repute. Why did you choose this particular character?
Because I wanted to learn how to spin wool, and my friend was doing a Sleeping Beauty, so I didn't want to copy her. So I picked Rumpelstiltskin and had a really great time with it because I love villains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes they're the most fun, right? Because they're the most misunderstood.
They really are, and yeah, it gives a lot of opportunity to play with some stuff. I got to pick apart some lore. It was how I found out that, my first series is a little bit of myth and match, is what I call it, where I was like, what can I throw into a blender from all the different types? And this was more focused on Nordic, because I wanted to use Hulda as the figure head of the Fae world in that book. So yeah, so I wanted to learn something cultural, and I wanted to learn how to spin wool. I wanted an excuse to go find a spinning wheel and be like, it's for work. I have two now. Their names were Minerva and Jonas.
So you named them?
Yes, you must.
Just don't prick your finger.
No, but they, actually one of them is a spindle wheel, and it does hurt if you poke it, I found out. Yeah, it does hurt.
That's so funny. I want to do this hobby. How can I write it off of my taxes? I know.
Yeah. Did not get to sleep for 100 years, unfortunately. But
no, you have children. That's never happening. Sorry.
No, it's never happening again. I did the fairy tale backwards. Dang it.
Right. So what is it about fairy tales that inspire you to explore them more deeply?
Well, my dad was an English teacher, and I got to sit in on a lot of his lectures, had to, because it was visitation and he had work. Everything doesn't add up schedule-wise between the classes. And he did a lot of talk about symbolism and culture in writing, and the different purposes that literature serves, and the different ways that we change things as things have been colonized over time. And he did a lot of this with second language learners and international students. And so it was a very accessible level for me as a kid to learn about, what is a fallacy, and how did we take this rule from this language and this one from that. And so I've always had an interest in, where do these ideas come from? How is this an example of our brain telling us about ourselves? Very Carl Jung type storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I also love fantasy, and I like modernizing things. So, for example, I have a story coming out next month. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And it's probably I call it my opus, and everyone says, no, you've got so much more ahead of you. And I'm like, no, this was it. This was the peak of I love this story so much.
I don't think you're allowed to label your own opus. Sorry.
Dang it. Well, I guess our listeners are going to have to label it for me.
That's right.
Let me know in your review which one is my opus, please. We'll take a poll, and we'll update you later. And so I had read that it was originally written as a social story to prepare French girls for arranged marriages. And so I was like, okay, well then mine's getting a library and a dog instead of a prince. That's
an arrangement I could get behind.
Yeah. So I like to turn it on its head a little bit.
I love it. Hey, Florida Kevin wants to know, is Rumpelstiltskin still a villain in your story, though?
Well, so the thing about villains is the way that a villain is labeled depends highly on who's telling the story. And the first book is his origin story. So it's him as a child, and it's told mostly from the perspective of his mother, who is a banished Narn. Narns are like the Fates in Greek mythology.
Okay.
And he is the result of a spell that she wasn't supposed to do while she was banished to the mortal realm. And oops, she got a changeling kid instead of a human one. Which just made things worse. And so his destiny is that, yeah, he's gonna doom this kingdom. But from the perspective of the princess, is he villainous? No, he's saving her life. And when we come down to, like, why would he choose it? Like, I can't give spoilers, but when we come down to why would he choose the child, would his acts be seen as villainous to the reader? No, but that's the thing about villains, is they're only villains if you're separate from them. Once you get into their psyche, I really believe that villains are created. They're not born. And you get to see that a lot in this story. Because his mother, man, she screwed up the tapestry without knowing what she was doing. She did a lot of harm. She is the villain in her world, but she's not the villain in his.
She's mom.
Even though she maybe should be. Like, yeah, there's a lot in it.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like fun. Yeah, I always think of, what is it? It's Ender's Game, right? Like at the end, where he was like, the problem is I really understand the enemy now. And now that I really understand them, I empathize with them. And now I can't hate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to hate them when you can empathize with them. Yeah.
Yep. So, that sounds fun. I'm going to get back to that one.
Yeah.
And what's the first book in that one called? In that series?
It's called The Weaver's Son. So The Weaver's Son is the name of the series and the first book. Yes. King's Prisoner is set to come out in January. Knock on all the wood. There's been a little bit of distance between book 1 and book 2. So part of what we're doing is I've actually run it through a second editor, and I'm doing an expanded edition of book 1 that will hopefully release at the same time as book 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's see, now that we've talked about your worlds a little bit, so we have kind of a little inkling about how your brains work, I have a question. If you were forced to live in one of your worlds by a particularly tricky genie, it has to be a genie. I mean, who else would do this, right?
Yeah.
Which one would you choose?
Okay, I would actually choose the world from the Beauty and the Beast, because it's kind of a metaphor for the one I'm living in now, and there's no place like home.
Oh, even after 18 months of being stuck in it, are you sure?
No, I kind of like it. I just filled it up with plants. I have my own office. I shut the door. There's lots of plants here, and it's great.
All you need is the dog, and it's just like Beauty and the Beast. I understand why you like that word now.
Dogs, plants, books.
There you go.
And a spinning wheel for some reason. I'm sure they were spinning in France.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to have a dog and not a cat, because the cat would totally get into that yard.
Yes.
It would be a mess.
Yes, it would.
Yes. So have you watched any TV lately that you've really gotten into?
Oh, man, that I've really gotten into. I've kind of settled into my old age recently, and my husband and I have been watching a lot of Backyard Builds. And it's kind of refreshing. He used to be a real estate agent. He's really into those, like, fix it, flip it type stuff. I'm more into the one where they go and do a table, not a house. But this one is like backyard stuff. They're two Canadians. They both are neurodivergent. They both have ADD. And you can see it in how they interact with each other. They're best friends. They do like stuff that says, you guys have universal health care when they're like on the job site. And it's delightful. I'm just real like as a just chill at the end of the day is a great watch.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've been watching all the cooking stuff on Netflix, and we've seen all of it now.
Yeah,
and I'm not kidding. All of it. I'm like, we need more cooking shows.
Yes, we've done many of them as well. I think we've run out of them.
Yeah, there was a new one, a Leftovers one, so we watched all of that one too.
Will somebody please friggin' feed Phil
fun.
again?
I actually used that to. What was that?
I said, will somebody please friggin' feed Phil again, because that's hilarious.
That was like our favorite. It was so cool.
Yeah,
Quick.
I'm a nailed it in the realm of baking and cooking. I'm real big on the nailed it shows. I love when they go for the gold and they fail miserably and everyone just rolls with it.
Talk about just for fun, you know?
Yeah, just for fun and hopefully cake.
I'm not sure I want to eat any of their cake.
Some of that, like, if it's ugly, but you didn't stick something weird in it, I'm cool. But those people that are like, I'll just put some styrofoam under this, mold of chocolate. Well, they don't eat this part. And I'm like, it's relatable, but no.
Oh, one of them, they were making donuts and they gave them the dough already ready and risen. I was like, but that's the hard part. That's cheating.
Yeah, this is really just decorating. Nailed it.
I'm like, that's
I think after the first couple seasons of having to eat some of it, the hosts were like, no more. No.
I put my foot down.
Can't ruin the donut.
There are lines you do not cross. Well, if you could have one of your stories turned into a movie or TV series or a cooking show, which one would it be?
I think Persephone Plus would lend itself really well to a series. It's a modernized Greek retelling. They're in college. They're figuring out all the college-y things. And then they're also, trying to keep Adonis from getting killed, trying to salvage a marriage, trying to keep Aphrodite from causing too much trouble. And I just think it would be on screen, super fun antics.
Yes, that would be fun. See, and you have so many Greek gods, and if you're also involving the Norse gods, like you've got so much to work with.
Yeah, I play with all the things.
Let's see. Are you working on anything new that you're over the moon excited about? Well, you talked about Beauty and the Beast. Is there anything else?
New. There's King's Prisoner, which I will be excited to be done with. If that ever, when that happens, but I was hoping it would be farther than now. And then Persephone Plus has actually been expanded to a Vela serial, so I'm working on episode 7 of that right now, and I'm super stoked to be writing this particular episode.
Nice. So those who don't know what Vela is, it is a Amazon program. So it's in their Kindle thing where you release one chapter at a time. And so you can go in, they'll give you points for that. So you give, it's coins or tokens or something, and you use them to read the stories. What are they, tokens?
They're tokens. You get 200 free for signing up too, so.
Nice. So you could go in and then you just you use tokens when you decide what you want to read. So it's kind of fun. It's interesting. You have to tell us how that goes.
I've appreciated it. I've struggled, especially as a creator during the times that we are in, the unprecedented, with buckling down and like reading, which is necessary for writing and finishing something. So when they offered the serialized, I was like, oh, what a wonderful opportunity for a lot of different reasons. And I find myself really enjoying that very short, and then I feel like I accomplished a thing, in the reading and writing. I'm surprised at how many, like, I'm a fantasy reader and writer, except for on Bella, I'm more into cozies.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Maybe it just fits better.
Yeah, I wonder what, I'm like, I'm curious about the mechanism of this, because this is how I always get, is I'm like, here's this cool thing, I wonder how it works psychologically. Yeah.
Well, that's what makes you a good writer. It's all good.
Yeah.
And let's see, Gretchen's on, so I do want to talk about your podcast. So I see that you also co-host a podcast. I love the name, by the way, The Exceptionally Average Authors.
Yes.
What made you do such a crazy thing?
Gretchen and I think the first time that Gretchen and I worked together was at Geek Girl Con, and she heard me talking with another author that we booth with, who had previously been my professor. I went to school to be an interpreter for the deaf, and we just happened to cross paths with authors later. And we were in this heated debate, and Gretchen was like, you should have a podcast. And I was like, no, but thank you. Me at my first con with my one book, like, terrified. I don't even like this much attention. Yeah, so, fast forward a few years, and the shutdown happens, and Gretchen's like, I'm going to be home all the time. This is the perfect time to do this. And I was like, okay, because sometimes Gretchen and I, we dream big. We make these really long lists. She makes these really long lists, and I say it's a bad idea. And some things happen and some things don't. But I was like willing to kick around the idea. And then she came to me with like the whole first season planned and interviews, and she figured out Anchor herself. And I was like, okay, cool. And then she found a designer for the thing, and I was like, I guess we're doing this. and we rolled with it. It's been super fun to just talk about the process of writing, how it's changed. She's been in the game a little bit longer than I have. And some of our guests have been in publishing. One of our guests he's a professor, and he's been in since like, you know, short fiction was how you cut your teeth, which is kind of why I moved over to short fiction for a while, because he was like, oh, look at you. And in the best way, he was like, the audacity to write a novel and put it out, like, good for you. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll go work on short fiction now. Like, and he's like, no, this is a wonderful thing. More creators should put their work out there. There should be less gatekeeping. So yeah, we get to meet a lot of really great people. We get to tell a lot of really weird stories. It's a fun time.
Nice. Yeah, Jenny linked the podcast for us. Thank you, Jenny. So it's in the chat. But if people want to look it up, so I know it's the Exceptionally Average Authors, and there's more to it. What's the rest of it?
Explain It All.
That's it. Explain It All.
Yeah,
I'm like, there are more letters.
Look at the pictures. We were going for like Gretchen came out with average authors, and I, of course, playing off the fact that I'm autistic, was like, oh, let's be exceptionally average, because that's tagged a lot, so I was like, exceptionally average, haha. And Explain It All was kind of like a throwback to Clarissa Explains It All, which is kind of, know a little bit about what to expect. Someday we're going to release patches, and they're going to be like average patches for the average author accomplishments.
Nice.
Yeah,
Man,
I learned
to
to create a backup the hard way, that kind of thing.
My Girl Scout Cup, they quickly learned I would do anything for a patch.
Yes.
And, I will. I'll do just about anything for a patch. I am addicted.
That's amazing. See, Gretchen, you had a great idea.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea.
Brain baby too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a whole blanket full of patches. I love them. It's actually literally full. I need a new one.
That's amazing. You should make a cloak next.
Ooh, I should. It'd be warm too, because those patches are heavy when you sew them on.
It would, yeah. And you can put them on the inside and be like, look at all my patches. Instead of thanks, it has pockets. Thanks, it has patches. Like, there's so much opportunity.
That could be my cosplay. I don't have a cosplay. That would totally work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. So, well, speaking of cosplay, we're heading to Dragon Con next week. We adore Dragon Con. We're a little addicted. We talk about it a lot. Do you have any conventions you're looking forward to?
I haven't really planned out conventions through the fall and winter yet, pending, what's going on with variants in my area. But I am on the list for Nerd Fair, which is happening in February. It's a fairly newer con. It had been in its like first or second year, right before the shutdown. And yeah, it had a great crowd. We had our own Krampus and all sorts of adventure.
That's awesome. Yeah, Gretchen says Dragon Con is her pipe dream. I'm like, no, it can be a reality. It does not have to be a pipe dream. It's
Gretchen, let's take the podcast on the road.
They do have an entire podcasting section. So they have all kinds of stuff.
We could record our experience driving to Dragon Con together. Mm-hmm. She would kick me out by like the second day. She would be all done.
It's awesome. Well, when you decide to come, let us know and we'll guide you around, because it's
absolutely
so much fun. Yeah, we're very addicted. Yeah, and y'all can apply for attending professional, so that you can go in. You can actually be on panels and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Rad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I did all the really big questions, and so we're down to the lightning round. You ready for the fast ones?
Oh man. Yes.
All right, here we go. What hobbies do you enjoy to refill your creative cup?
Do I have hobbies? Plants, mostly.
Plants. I like that. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Regular chocolate.
Just regular chocolate. I like that. Country you want to visit?
Canada, as plain as that seems.
Isn't that a hop, skip, and a jump? I mean, it shouldn't be that hard.
It is. I went once at 15 for just a day. I want to go for more than one day.
I think you can make that happen.
I think so. It's realistic.
That's a realistic dream. I like it. What part of your daily routine is an absolute must?
Coffee.
I feel ya. What is your potluck go-to?
Mac and cheese.
Delicious. Homemade?
Oh, yeah.
And finally, last question. Where can fans find you and your work?
All of my work is available on Amazon, and select works are available wide. Persephone Plus specifically, you can get on audio from your library if you want. And socially, I'm on Instagram, Stevie Rae Causey. I'm kind of floating around on Twitter and Facebook, but really it's Instagram. It's plants, dogs, rabbits, the plot bunnies get featured a lot.
They add to the story. You write about them. Come on, library to dog.
Like my husband to agree to have 2 rabbits, as I was like, it's a business investment. They're plot bunnies. Their names are Albus Bumbledore and Sybil Trebunley.
Oh my gosh, that is the cutest thing ever. Until you have to go to the vet and write it on a form. Okay, hold on. It's a little long.
Yeah, I get photos when they go in for their nail clips and stuff. They're super suave when we go out.
Oh, that's adorable. Excellent. So thank you very much for being on. So now that Stevie is your new favorite author, please make sure to review her work and review us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitch. And we do want to thank our subscribers on Twitch. Right now we have DH Dunn, Mari, and Friday Blue. Thank you so much. Y'all help us keep these lights on. And for everyone else, we will see you next week where it'll be our last thing to do, or that we do before we jump on the car and head out to Dragon Con. So Tuesday night, and it'll be Mark W. Stallings. So we'll see y'all next week.